Cosmic Beauty is coming out with a brand new eyeshadow palette. This palette is called The Sun, and it's been a minute since we got an eyeshadow palette release from the brand. My favorite palettes are their 20 pan ones because I just feel like they do such a nice job of curating a color story. I find that for an indie brand that includes so many beautiful performing matte shades and special shimmers, the price points really are quite fair. And the inside of this palette truly excites me because it's been a minute since we got a really vibrant palette from the brand, and I just feel like it fits the vibes of summer so well. This palette will be launching on July 31st, and you can use a discount affiliate code to save, so I'm going to go ahead and pop mine up on the screen now. This is a UK-based brand, but now they also have a US warehouse. Let's go ahead and get into doing some detailed swatches and 2 looks. So similarly to their other 20 pan palettes, you have 12 mattes and 8 shimmers. I have noticed over time in the 5 or so years since I have used Cosmic Beauty eyeshadows that the shimmers have continued to get special over the years. We've gotten more chromes and the textures I've found to be more approachable. You have less kind of squishiness and emollients in the pan as opposed to a lot of the first palettes that I tried from the brand. In this palette, I really like to see that we have many shadows that are sort of topper-like, so we have some iridescence, and also some shades that are like sparkly toppers, so these are really great for layering over each other and over mattes. And we also have some shimmers that are on the more opaque side. Here is what the whole palette looks like swatched to my arm. I love to see that we have both lighter mattes and deeper mattes and some midtones. And in a 20 pan palette in general, people want to know, are there shades that seem redundant? And I really don't think so. All of these shades are really quite different. First shimmer we have is called Joy. This is what I would describe as a white-based iridescent. You can see that it has a very sparkly finish. It's a little bit flaky, but it definitely smooths out well with your fingertip, and it has kind of a golden, green, and a little bit of a pink shift. Next, we have the shade Abundance, and I would describe this as a semi-sheer pink, also with a very sparkly finish, and it has predominantly a gold and orange shift. Success is a semi-sheer peach, and it also has a very sparkly finish. It has predominantly a gold and green shift. You can definitely see that it has more of a peach base in comparison to Abundance, which has more of a pink base. Next, we have the shade Clarity, which is definitely my favorite shimmer in the palette. It's this sheer cool-toned pink, and it has this beautiful, strong blue-purple shift. This year, I've really honed in on my love for blue-purple shifting shades, and I know this one is going to be a showstopper. Next, we have the shade Fulfillment, and I would describe this as kind of a rusty red metallic. This is a straight shimmer. It doesn't have much of a chrome shift to my eye. Next, we have the shade Embrace, which I would describe as a kind of pewter leaning purple. To my eye, this is also a straight shimmer without a chrome shift. Next, we have the shade Happiness, which I would describe as a warm-toned neutrals with a twist. It has a golden base, and it has predominantly a grungy green shift. Last but not least, we have the shade Confidence, which I would describe as a gorgeous, bold purple metallic. The one thing I did want to mention about it is that I did experience staining with it. That is when I swatched and wore it on the skin. And I believe that is the main shade that I experienced this with. All right, now we're going to get into doing some looks. My second look is inspired by a fantastic makeup artist on Instagram, so I'm going to link her handle when I do that look, as well as show an inspo shot. All right, I'm so excited to dip into this super colorful palette from Cosmic Beauty. I'm going to do one look using these 2 columns, and the other I'm going to use these 2 columns because I do want to use as many shades as I can reasonably. So I'm going to start off with this bright pink called Harmony, and I'm just going to put that on the inner portion of the lid. That is so pigmented, and something I have said for a while about Cosmic Beauty palettes is that you can really count on them for having a buildable pigmentation, so they won't be full pigment right out of the gate. And I find them to be pretty beginner friendly in my opinion. I did prime my lids. I've been using the Myrick's Color Fix Nudes in the shade 4 because it's a little bit lighter than my skin tone. It helps me cancel out some of the discoloration. All right, now we're going to dip into this kind of rich purple tone shade called Self-Discovery. It feels like it's been a little while since we had something so bold and vibrant from Cosmic Beauty. So I am excited. I think, you know, this warm toned palette is perfect for kind of where we are in the middle of summer. I find that even people that, you know, don't gravitate necessarily toward warm tones do bring out some of their warm tones in the summer. No issues with building up these mattes or blending them. This is definitely performing as the other mattes that I know and love from Cosmic Beauty. All right, now we are going to take this really beautiful deep blue matte called Optimism, and I'm just going to work that into the outer corner. And this is a deepening up shade, and then go back in with that fluffier brush I just had and work that up into the purple. I'm happy that I'm really not getting much fallout either since I did my base first. I'm taking that same blue shade and working it down onto the lower lash line. Doesn't have to be perfect because I am going to go in with some other mattes under the brow bone. And then I'm going to go in again with that pink and just kind of connect that down to the blue. All right, now I'm going to go in with this beautiful pastel blue matte called Content. I definitely need a elf to visit my home like during the night to clean my brushes. I would love to have a stash of clean brushes or more clean brushes. So I'm just adding that to the inner corner. And sweeping it up. You know, it's a good thing when you have so many shades in a palette that you want to use and incorporate in your looks. I feel like there's so many, like just 2 shadow combinations that would be so pretty with this palette. I love the way that pastel blue contrasts against the more vibrant shades. And then I'm just going to take some of that same shade and place that on the brow bone. The last matte I'm going to use is Opportunity, which is kind of like pinky peachy shade here. And then I would think I would have used most of the mattes in those 2 columns. I'm just going to kind of go over it around the lower edges where and work that down into my blush. All right, and I am super, super excited to dip into the shimmers. This shade Clarity is this pink that has kind of a blue purple sparkle. I know I already showed a swatch, but let me show it again. Here is what it looks like on the back of the hand. Oh, so, so, so pretty. I want to put that basically all over the lid or close to all over the lid. Definitely where I put down that pink. So, so pretty. And then I'm debating whether I want to use a second shimmer kind of close to that blue matte, but I think I'm honestly pretty happy with this shade all over the lid. Something that I know I mentioned before, but I'll mention it again, is this shade is super pretty, this deep purple shimmer, but I did get staining with it, so I just wanted to mention it again. Okay, on the inner corner, I'm going to use this gorgeous shade called Abundance, which is kind of like a peach gold shifting shade. Again, let me just swatch it on the back of my hand. So I'm going to pick up a little bit on a brush and just place that right on the inner corner. Okay, and then on the inner corner, I'm going to use the shade Joy because I don't think that I may incorporate it in my second look. And it's just another like really pretty kind of sheer shade that you can use as a topper or as like a highlighting shade. I may just pick up a little bit on my fingertip as well for a higher density. Yeah. I'm just gonna go in with a little bit of Urban Decay in the waterline. This is the Bright Cobalt matte liner called Chaos. And I'm just going to add a little bit to the upper lash line as well. All right, I added some mascara, and here is the first completed look. All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and get into my second look, starting off with this gorgeous yellow tone matte called Energy. I'm gonna start off by placing that all over the lid. Kind of excited to have an incredibly warm toned look for this side. So I know I did mostly like blues and purples for my first look. Okay, now I just grabbed a smaller brush. I'm gonna go into this kind of a lighter orange shade called Leo. And I'm just going to start to build up a little bit of orange in the inner and outer corners. Kind of like a mini little halo. Now I'm just going to take a little bit of that same shade and kind of work that into the crease just very lightly, because I'm going to go over the same areas with the deeper orange in a second. And now I'm just taking a fluffier brush and diffusing that a little bit. All right, now I'm gonna go in with this shade called Success and kind of repeat the same steps that I just did over the shade Leo. But just trying to build up a little bit of contrast between that orange and the yellow. And I'm just going to go back with this fluffier brush to diffuse so that those edges are soft. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and repeat that same process again with the shade Fulfillment, which is quite a bit more pigmented. So I am going to need to go in with a lighter hand. And then just going back in with the fluffier brush to blend those edges. And then taking that same shade and just lightly putting some in the crease. Again, gonna go in with a fluffier brush and just blend out around the edges so that we don't have any harsh edges. Okay, now I'm just gonna take this Urban Decay eyeliner in the shade Vice and put it right along the upper and the lower lash line. I'm going to take the smallest amount of Self-Discovery on a flatter brush and just use that to kind of smoke out where I place that liner. And a little bit along the upper lash line as well, just to minimize harsh edges. Okay, and I know this is a very matte heavy look, but I do want to use just a couple of touches of shimmer. I'm gonna go in with Success and just take a little bit on my brush here, place that in the inner corner, and a little bit on my fingertip, place it on the brow bone. I added some mascara, and here is the second completed look. All right, now that I've had a chance to do some detailed swatches and looks, let's close up with some wrap-up thoughts. So first things first, I'm very happy to have a Cosmic Beauty palette. It's been such a long time, like the very beginning of this year, and I'd been missing a release like this, a 20-pan palette, which they're particularly known for, and I'm super happy with this color story. I think, I think they've done a really great job of padding out the range. They have colorful palettes, they have neutral palettes, but it's been a while since we had one that was this colorful. So very, very happy about that. I used a ton of the shades in these two looks, and I thought everything performed really well. Some things I just want to, first of all, mattes, no surprises whatsoever, buildable, blendable, beginner friendly, all the same things hold. The shimmers, I felt like actually, there were only two that kind of had maybe a little bit of emollients to them, but it wasn't crazy. That's the shade Happiness and the shade Abundance. Those ones just have a little bit of kind of emollients to them, but not as much as some of their initial palettes they came out with. I didn't have any issues with working with them whatsoever. And then, a few of the shimmers have a little bit of flakiness to them, which you can kind of see in the pan. You can smooth that out with your finger well. You can still pick them up with a brush, and I did both. I both picked up the shimmers with a brush or applied them with my finger and didn't have any issues with using them like that. Obviously, if you're not into warm tones, this palette is probably not going to be for you, because I would say it is warm toned predominant, but this is a beautiful, bold palette. And I love that, you do have some fiery tones, but you have also some pops of kind of jewel tones as well. A lot that you can do with this palette. But now I would love to know what you think of this palette. Have you tried anything from Cosmic Beauty? I'm due to do some more Cosmic Beauty content. I want to do a couple more shorts, and I also want to use my top 5 palettes from the brand in some type of long form video. If you made it to the end of the video, I would love it if you left me a sun emoji. As always, I really hope you found this video helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.